Hey everyone, hope your day is going well. We're going to learn about 40,000 years of music today in about 8 minutes. Michael Spitzer will be giving us the TLDR on 40K years of music. Let's jump in.
If you were born in Beethoven's time, you'd be lucky if you heard a symphony twice in your lifetime, whereas today it's as accessible as running water. We're drowning in music. We in the West have tended to have a misconception that history of music is a history of works or composers. This tends to reduce music into an object, into an exhibit in an imaginary museum. It also overvalues the role of a composer compared to most people who are innately musical. And I wanted to get away from the usual thing of which composer wrote what piece at what time, to see the bigger picture. We're in a kind of moment of the global, of the universal. And music is absolutely universal.
Yeah, man. It's out there.
I'm Michael Spitzer. I'm Professor of Music at the University of Liverpool in the United Kingdom. I've written a book called The Musical Human, A History of Life on Earth.
We'll have to look that up.
It's almost inconceivable to write a prehistory of music because Edison invents the phonograph in 1877, and prior to that, we have no record of any sound. In terms of the evolution of instruments, the very oldest instrument we have is a human voice. We also have lithic instruments made of rock, such as stalactites, or the famous rock gongs in Tanzania. But the landmark is a discovery of bone flutes, flutes made out of the bones of vultures, and they're dated about 40,000 years, and they were found in the South German caves. One of the problems...
It sounds good too. See, music, I've always thought about music as it's not really invented, but discovered, because there's other creatures who do music, right? Like birds and even other, like primates and stuff. So it's not only a human thing. It's out there. The music is just waiting out there to be discovered. And I love this stuff. This is so interesting. I never knew about those bone flutes.
One of the problems with instruments is that the materials biodegrade. So we have to work inferentially by mapping from what we do know. If you're looking at the broad picture of the evolution of sapiens, then the epochs are hunter-gatherer, farming community, and then the founding of cities and city-states. And each of these epochs is associated with mentalities. So hunter-gatherers tended to be nomadic, and if you're essentially journeying through a landscape, what you don't do is carry heavy instruments. Music has to be portable, ideally just a voice, or if not, a very light flute or a small percussive instrument. And if you look at the music that is played by the Cameroon Pygmies, every time they play a piece, it sounds different. It's very much music of the moment. Now, what changed?
You could almost imagine that, being out there so many years ago before we had the ability to record anything. So that's very interesting. Love to learn about these things, man, and just take a moment and reflect on that. How music is such a integral part of especially for human beings, of our lives. It's so important.
Is when you invent farming, you settle down, and your whole mindset becomes fixed on the circle of the seasons, the circle of life. And you invent repeatable work, and the structure of the work becomes as cyclical as life itself. You invent the circle in music. You invent musical rituals. And once music migrates from the farm to the town, certain changes happen.
Yeah.
Instruments can
I love
become
that.
heavy because you start to set quite permanent roots into the town. You create heavy instruments like bells and gongs, but also very delicate ones like harps and lutes, which will be damaged over a journey. And music's function now also changes with the growth of social hierarchy. The job of music is to be a handmaiden, to serve the power of the prince or the church. And musicians become professionalized, and their job is to create music to be listened to for people with leisure. And this is the origin of what we call concerts. To have a concert requires leisure, requires money, and oftentimes it's the aristocrats or the upper middle class who had the time to sit back and enjoy music performed for them. For most people over millions of years, that didn't happen.
Away, hold away, hold away together, away.
So the rule is that most music was performed functionally, as we say, whistle as you work.
Away, hold away, hold away, Joe.
Also, it was performed in a participatory way, so there was no distinction between those who create the music and those who listen to it. It was the same people.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. That's all part of the evolution.
The idea that we have a composer and we have a listener is a purely modern invention. 1,000 years ago, in 1020, an Italian monk called Guido invents staff notation, and life was never again the same for Western music. Why is that so important? Staff notation was a tool of church control. And through writing chants down, the church could ensure literally that monks singing at the furthest outpost of the empire of Christendom literally sang from the same hymn sheet. And then, once the empire expands beyond the Mediterranean basin, and Cortés invades Mexico in 1519, he takes notation with him. 10 years after Cortés decimates the Indians in 1519, by 1530, we have Aztec musicians singing Spanish polyphony in Mexico Cathedral. So music notation becomes the sharp end of the stick of globalization.
Wow.
Now, there are various consequences.
It's quite wild to think about, like a Mozart or Beethoven who wrote and composed music, and because of this notation, we can now play it. We must assume that it's the same like when they did it 300-400 years ago. Can we really be sure though? I guess so, because that's, you just follow the music, right? You just follow the notation and that's what comes out. It would be cool if we had those recordings and you could actually compare them. But it's crazy to think about these things. Jeez.
Now, there are various consequences to staff notation. Many of them are frankly bad. By pinning notes down to a page, it's almost like capturing a butterfly. You're taking a note away from the voice. You're making it very precise. If you look at the way most people speak or sing, the pitch slides. It fluctuates. It doesn't stay still. Notation freezes a note. It becomes rather cold and mechanical. It also freezes music as an object, which is actually quite counterintuitive. Music isn't an object, it's an activity, it's a thing you do, like dancing or jogging. But once you turn it into an object, you create a division between the composer of the object and those who merely mechanically reproduce it.
Yeah, we did. That's a different perspective that we have.
We're regaining the participation.
Because when we say like, oh, now there's, oh man, that's very interesting, man. Like, yes, there is a difference between people who create. Now we look at it this way: they create it. You have tabs or notation, and then it's and lyrics written on the page, and somebody else performs it. Which we now call a cover, and we make a distinction between that, and I guess rightfully so. But it's so interesting to see that evolution. There's somewhere, a song was created, maybe a traveling bard or an just somebody performing a song. You almost don't know where it comes from. Maybe you don't always know the origin, and other people definitely didn't know because it was not really written down anywhere. So it was just like a sort of collective consciousness type of thing. Like, we know this song has been sung in inns and everywhere, and then, oh man, that's so interesting. You just request a song and people play it. And where did it come from? Maybe with some songs they did know, some songs they didn't. But it mattered less, I guess. Yo.
The participatory condition of music, which was the norm thousands of years ago, where we all had an equal stake in creating and enjoying music. Greater integration with technology has served to accelerate a cultural change, and we see that in the extraordinary role of the internet. We can both create music in our homes and share it. The original bone flute was a piece of technology. It serves to extend human capacity. It extends the voice, which extends our imagination. I think it's fair to say that just as what Stockhausen or Beyoncé is achieving today would have been completely out of the comprehension of a Mozart or a Beethoven a few centuries ago, we can't even begin to imagine the possibilities awaiting us in the future.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers.
Yeah, man, this is a great channel. I'll link to these videos in the description. Checked out a few videos on this channel. Really, really, really great. Yeah, this was a very interesting video and cool to look at some of the different eras of music and how it has changed and how technology progressed and evolved and how the business aspect is then coming in, of course. And yeah, we'll see how that is going to change in the next few years with AI coming in. It's an uncertain future, but I guess we'll find out. Hey, thank you everybody for being here. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.